Greetings, everyone. Thanks for joining me again on Egypt Old Kingdom. In terms of the series, we are definitely now around the final turn and in the home stretch. I think there's going to be 3 more episodes, including this one, and then we're going to wrap it up. But on the docket here is going to be finishing up the Fifth Dynasty. And to that end, let's make sure we finish strong on the Tomb of Sahura here that we began in the last episode. I do want to add another worker, and we have some tribes that we need to finish up with, including one I forgot. The goat people we're going to get here, and 93%, so they're close, but they're still independent. And we could have done that earlier, I just forgot that they were there. Now we have the nut people, and there was an interaction taboo here that was stopping us, but that's no longer the case. So those should be the last 2, along with a couple others that we are currently still assimilating. And then in Memphis, I think I'll put you over here by this thicket, but I just want to wrap up affairs down here as quickly as I reasonably can. Then on the technology side, there are a few, as we mentioned, items that we skipped over earlier, and we're now going to go back and pick them up, beginning with gardens. So sailing among the marshy reeds became an important recreational activity in Egypt. Naturally, rich Egyptians tried to recreate a part of their natural environment in their estates and started to lay out gardens next to their homes, always encircled with walls and personally intimate areas. And of course, we know large-scale gardens and landscaping would later happen as well on structural projects such as the bent pyramids. So we have all of our cults up, and we are ready to proceed. Wheat people have joined us. Excellent. Wheat people have marshes. Not excellent. So we'll go ahead and work on clearing that out. Blessing of Ptah is in. We can assimilate the nut people. They look like they will have marshes for us to deal with as well, but first things first. Okay, those 2 are in place. We have the Tomb of Sahura. So now we move on to the Tomb of Jedkara, who was ruling for about 8 to 10 years, and interestingly enough, it looks like they originally wanted a step pyramid. Would have been the first step pyramid since Djoser, I believe. And then they said, no, we're going to change that. We're going to make a true pyramid. And then they couldn't finish it at all because he died too soon, which, by the way, is another interesting tidbit here that I find a little bit unfair in the game. There are a number of pharaohs in this period that don't live to finish their tombs in real life, but guess what? We're required to finish them as ourselves with what I think is a fairly breakneck pace that we're seeing here in the Fifth Dynasty. And I think they could have, made it a little bit looser, and it would have been more fair and reasonable, but we do what we have to do, and in this case, we have to build a bunch more pyramids. So we are going to actually up Osiris one more time. You can see the percentage there. That's a big boost. I think we have just enough favor to swing it. And then we're going to get Ptah as well. And we will proceed. The nut people are happy with us. Excellent. Owl people have joined us. Also excellent. So, over here, that's not a bad food area. It's not a great food area. But over here, we have nice production. And also a very nice production expedition. So we are very much going to take advantage of that. New trial is coming. 7th trial approaching soon. And then Ancestral Duty, which is going to knock us down. But notice it says the next one is only going to be a slight boost in 10 turns. So at least that is good news. Built grain fields. So you can move on to another area. And we must make sure that we accelerate the next tomb. I think we have everybody up. Yes. Five more to go. Seth fires and misses, but we're going to have to do some expenditure there. This tomb is up. This is kind of review. I think they're just emphasizing it due to the prominence of it at this point in history. But royal titulature appears in Egypt. We've already talked about the Horus name and the significance of that. Favor of Seeker. So, yeah, we need Seth. And we need Seeker. And our next cult worship is going to be 100. And we're down to 60, so this is getting a little tight. But we have some more expeditions coming in, boosting our particularly luxuries very nicely. Can assimilate goat people. And then our thicket. We'll clear out these cereals just to say we did it. And we appear to be all set for now. So our resources are holding fine. We lose some when we go for the accelerated construction, but that's only every other turn. Trying to keep those as high as possible in advance of our next trial. So the nut people have joined us pretty quickly, actually. We'll go on with the next marsh. Another grain field here. Gradually working through those. Happy needs another round. Really low here on favor, but we've got, at least 3 turns till our next one. So we should be good, and Seth was recently re-upped, so we're not going to run into anything there anytime soon. Now we get to do some useless scouting. Distant sea expeditions. Times of intensive building, Egyptian contacts with overseas regions. Supplied building projects with wood and metal became more extensive. Indeed, many expeditions have happened. Development of skills in seafaring and navigation, and many foreign lands were discovered for the first time. And I think, once again, we almost forget to accelerate the tomb of Reneferef, who was around for 2 years, maybe 3. Reneferef was there. That's about what we can say about him. And yet we still get to build his tomb, of course, even though he's probably almost dead by this point. But from what we know, he died quite unexpectedly and probably of natural causes. That has been finished, and a bit of an interesting historical footnote here, the Tomb of Ti, Royal Chancellor and Overseer of Royal Works for King Nayusera, who's the next in our rundown, built a very lavish tomb for himself in the necropolis, but the walls of his tomb show us the colloquial language of common Egyptians as it was when they chatted with friends, talked to pets, and sang folk songs. Almost a more casual type of inscription than the norm for the tombs. And then indeed we are up to Nayusera Ini. We're showing the Sun Temple of Ra here as our next construction. And as far as we know, this is the largest of the Sun Temples that has survived to modern times. And it wasn't just that Nayusera built, also probably half a dozen pyramids of varying sizes for himself, for other officials, for queens, etc. Very peaceful reign, most likely, and one of the significant reforms, or at least changes, under Nayusera is that the nomarchs, the rulers of the outlying provinces, they no longer lived in the pharaoh's court. They would live actually in whatever area that they were responsible for ruling. And this is seen as definitely being a significant step towards them becoming more independent and gaining more power. And I think we are good. Yes, we are good across the board. Well, that sucks. So we'll throw another one down here. Nope, not you. It's one of our better luxuries expeditions, so it hurts to miss on that one. At least we have started to build up quite a bit, so it doesn't hurt that much. And we did get another good one in. Semitic tribes in Canaan. They have brought apparently improvement in metallurgy, and we get accelerated development of Amu, which of course is already one of our best regions. It just got that much better. Swamp drained here. You may proceed. Grain fields finished here, so I think we're ready to begin working then on our final area. And yep, you're going to be wrapping that up before too much longer. Pretty happy with how all of that looks. Onwards to finishing our Sun Temple. Jedkara's reforms. It is now time for the 7th trial. Energetic King Jedkara, supported by a wise vizier, Ptah-hotep, has commenced large-scale reforms. He strives to create a perfect society, impeccably organized and with a flawless resource distribution. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's not going to happen. By the will of the gods and King Jedkara, we are restoring Mat and are reorganizing Egypt into a more advanced state. Yet the inertia of old customs hinders us. So our goals are to basically redistribute the economy, create new titles, reforms to improve the laws, use the advantage of our patron god to neutralize the negative consequences. We need to keep reform rejection power low and raise reform progress to 100%. And then our background, the Fifth Dynasty was famous for a vast number of reforms aimed at decentralizing state government, as we have discussed. These allowed for better control over resources freed up after the end of the Great Age of Pyramids. King Jedkara apparently excelled at it the most. Well, he was definitely the most aggressive reformer, I would say. And we'll get into this a little bit later, but there is definitely physical evidence for that. Whether or not he excelled is, yeah, that's a matter of discussion. So, we have our reforms here. We have our options of create titles, and that says legal system rationalization plus 4%. That means reform plus 4%. That's not immediately obvious. It's weird they call it something different. But we're going to be using luxuries for that, and also increases the reform rejection chance. If this gets to 100% or higher, we can't actually do any more of these. And then this one is going to sacrifice instead of luxuries. Doesn't have nearly the increase in reform rejection chance, and a slightly better boost to reforms, but also you're sacrificing 2 resources instead of 1. And then develop here is what I think we should focus on right away. I haven't worked out like the precise order in which to do these, but generally I want to focus on this because it reduces the cost for the other ones by 10%, and then also is going to reduce reform rejection chance. So we're going to hit this a bunch at first, and then we'll hit this once, and then maybe, let's see. Because I don't want to hit develop when it's not reducing the reform rejection chance. Because that just seems wasteful. So with that, we'll hit this a couple more times. And then every so often you go through this and you get one of these bonuses. So, land administration reforms. Jedkara announced profound reforms in land administration. Many new official positions were introduced to increase government efficiency. And that is very much the case. So we'll keep pushing that up. And we are going to do this all in one turn. We have no intent in letting this float and wait and make things more difficult for us. So now we can see we're keeping this really quite low. Okay, rejection power minus 2%, and another plus 30 food and production to help us absorb the cost. I'm going to hit this a couple more times, and then I think I really shouldn't have to do it much more. And now we have the lower prices, of course, to scale this up. Okay. Title ranks. Jedkara introduces more rigid rules and record keeping, improving the control over the multitude of newly introduced titles. There are now 2 viziers, one to manage the palace and one for provincial administration. So again, bureaucracy becoming more complex. But not just more complex, it also was a case of basically increasing the middle. In other words, the pharaoh generally losing some power to the provincial nomarchs and similar positions, but also the lower level bureaucracy losing power as well. So you have a stronger but larger group of high-level officials is the way I understand it probably having worked. Okay, so another plus 30 boost to us, and we are almost there. I think we can get there shortly. Have plenty of luxuries, really, I think. We got 17 left. Yeah, if I do... Okay. Very nice. If I do one more of these, and then 2 more of these, I think I've got it. And there is the Sun Temple of Nayusera Ini. I think this is quite a good diagram. And from what I've seen, this is, as we normally see, quite similar to what the Sun Temple did indeed look like. And a gold victory! Jedkara's reforms were accepted by both gods and people alike, allowing him to adopt Egyptes, economy to new realities. Officials of Egypt have changed considerably. They now have more rights and fulfill their responsibilities more zealously. So we've lost that 20% spoilage. Excellent. Plus 3 decentralization. We'll take that as well. Great changes can be observed starting with Jedkara's rule. The number of regional necropolises and tombs of noblemen multiplies, along with their size and opulence. Mentions of increased activity and importance of royal officials can be found in these tombs. Now, all of this is true. The controversy comes into, okay, exactly how much more power was given. Because there are some historians who will argue, okay, this really hastened the fall of the Old Kingdom because they gave the provinces too much power, and the central power of the pharaoh and the king ruling from Memphis, all that really fell. And so they weren't able to handle some of the challenges that came up. And there's others who say, no, no, no. They didn't, it wasn't to that extent. The pharaoh was still in charge, etc. There is evidence to some extent in both directions. So you can't really say for sure one direction or the other, but the overall opinion is probably somewhat negative towards the reform of Jedkara. They're basically going to say he probably went a little bit too far. And here they're going to tell us more about the Sun Temple. Decorated with remarkable reliefs of wildlife scenes, observed animal behavior in each of the seasons and recorded their habits. Flood season, schools of fish rushed into the Nile, and the mating season began for gazelles and hyenas. Grain was harvested during the low water season, and these depictions have helped us to understand how Egyptians viewed their world. Lower Nubia is now developing again. They're establishing new permanent settlements, and the new culture has become even richer. So they're having more of a renaissance, and that's going to help us as we are definitely having activity down in that area. And now our grain fields can get under work there. The swamp has been drained here. Okay. Well, this is a good area for military, except we don't really care about military right now. So I don't really think we're going to hang out. I think we're just going to leave. Blessing of Ptah is in. And I'm not feeling comfortable enough with this that I'm going to attempt to up more with Osiris. So we're just going to hang on here. We've got some more coming in. Now, since we are through now the 7th trial, we are now going to be proceeding towards the end of the game. The last trial relates to the first intermediate period at the fall of the Old Kingdom. And the reason I'm mentioning this now is because one of the ways is, look, it's extreme. There's no way to describe it as being realistic. One of the ways of passing it simply amounts to saving up a ton of favor, 2,000 of it, and just spending that to be able to get through it in a very ahistorical way. We're not going to do that. We're going to take the historical path. I just want to mention that that possibility is there, but it's been described by some fans of the game as, sort of a Horus ex machina. It's not really sensible, but it's giving you a way to pass a very painful time without having to really deal with the consequences. Now, what I am going to do is begin. I'm going to do some repairs here on these houses. We're going to want that. And I'm going to begin focusing on favor more, though, because I don't think we have any particular need for military at the moment. So we are going to knock down 3 of our barracks. They have served us well. It's just that we have enough for our current purposes. And I'm going to put up temples in those locations. See our antelopes here? They're getting close to being ready. And then we should have 3 of these left, right? Yes, we are still on target. So we're now, of course, going to the tomb of Nyasera, since we have built his sun temple. And we'll get to Jedkara, but we're not quite there yet, even though we've succeeded in passing his reforms. Wow, a whole bunch of stuff happening. Now, I like this particular story. Rar the Careless. Officials engraved the walls of their tombs with descriptions of the most interesting and memorable events of their lives. An official named Rar told us a story of how, during a religious ceremony, he accidentally bumped into a king's staff and was sure the gods would punish him. However, the king pardoned the careless official. So as a natural-born klutz, that sort of is a story that appeals to me. I also find those just sort of those little amusing anecdotes that are not about some major event, but tell the story of a seemingly random person that you wouldn't know about otherwise. Probably don't need you in place there. And then for our barracks, of course, we want to get you going into temples. There we go. And we have a couple of extra workers now. The reason I'm not building more temples than that, by the way, is I don't think our economy can support it. If I decide otherwise, I can always change it. So, we're still assimilating here. This isn't a bad area. Since I don't think we have a huge need for food at the moment, we could go there. I could work on this. You know, it probably wouldn't hurt. Okay, you're not a great expedition, but let's just get that one-time resource there. Just for the fun of it. Just using people wherever it looks like they might be of benefit. Okay. And yes, we must accelerate Nyasera's final tomb. And our max population now up to 99. Finish the tomb of Nyasera. Now we could potentially do another expedition here. Do we want to? I can always take it back. We'll do it for now. Built our grain fields. And we're going to re-up with Seeker. Then we also have our final non-infinite or non-future technology research to do. Long-distance land expeditions. Basically the same type of idea as the ones at sea, reducing our scouting duration. Profiting from the exploitation of territories neighboring Egypt, royal servants grew increasingly isolated in their domains. Accumulated knowledge of nearby lands, well-developed supply system, and administrative capabilities of nomarchs, again, very much in the theme we've been talking about, allowed them to commit to multi-month expeditions into the depths of Africa. Okay, we aren't going to need you there anymore either. And we have explored Gaul, otherwise known as modern-day France. Quite impressive from this vantage point, but we're not going to have enough time for your next expedition, so we will yank you out of there also. We have plenty of people now. We need to find things for you to do. And you know what? If you would finish up this assimilation that's taking forever, that would be great. It really would. It would be fantastic for me if you would do that. But it appears you don't feel like it. I think we'll put one there. And I think I want to focus possibly on food, although luxuries wouldn't be a bad idea either. We'll put one here And how much food are we getting from these? Yeah, these are 2.2. We've got some 2.3s out here. So I just want to find reasonable locations for our various workers. And we almost forgot, we don't want to. Pop in here, because this is where we are building now. And next up is, yep, it's time for Jedkara. So now that we're building his tomb, we think that Jedkara ruled for possibly 35, maybe even 40 years, and died in his 50s according to the mummy. So 15, 20 years old when he took the throne, fairly young man. Lots of expeditions were a key feature of Jedkara's reign. Sinai, Nubia, Punt, etc. And also did not build a sub-temple to Ra, and was the first pharaoh in about 80, 90 years that was the case for. And we think this is a sign, and they're going to get to this in a bit, but that the cult of Osiris was becoming more and more prominent relative to Ra at this time. And I want to make sure, nope, I didn't forget any of those. Okay. Very nice. So we've got a bonus there. Oldest legal code of Mesopotamia. Urukagina, ruler of the city of Lagash, confiscated the land seized by officials and forced priests to lower the prices of rituals. Abolished debt slavery, helped the poor. Urukagina was the first among Mesopotamian rulers to order his laws to be recorded on clay tablets so they would not be forgotten. Well, I don't think we know for sure that he was the first to order that. Definitely the first that they have survived from, but we're definitely seeing the rise of the legal system there. Ended the blessing of Hapi, so we'll go up there again. And now I think we're going to have a bit, yep, we now have a bit of a respite again in between. We may be able to save up enough for another hit on Osiris, we will see. Land of Min, swamp has been drained down here. Okay, I don't think that got us very far. So we're going to yank you. Got a thicket cut here. Another grain field. Couple more turns on our temples. Our antelope herds. We finished you. Domesticate there. And I think I'm just going to have you hang out in here and farm. I think, oh. Where is our temple? Or our tomb, rather, to Jedkara. Let us not forget it. We are getting a slight negative in our military, but I mean -4 per turn at almost 1,700, and once it'll eventually go down and reach a balance point anyway. Not concerned about that. Very nice. And if you've been keeping up, watching some of the other videos I've been doing, specifically about the pyramids, you know who's coming next. We have assimilated the goat people. We're just going to hang out down here. I don't want to go after that resource, and this expedition, not too impressive. So I'm just going to hang out here and be very happy to bring in that production. And a little bit of military doesn't hurt either. Tomb of Jedkara. But we have Unas coming up now, who is famous for the pyramid texts. The first ones that we know are those in his tomb. But also, we have a situation where 30-year reign, again, another long-lived pharaoh, and economic decline was really prominent during his time. It really felt like this was the end period of the Fifth Dynasty, and it had seen better days. Up to 101 maximum, but we are not going to go after that. And here come our temples. Okay, we've blocked Seth. I think we still have one more block there, and here we go. The rise of the Osiris cult. God of the otherworld and sacrificial ancestor increases. Now Osiris himself, not the king, helps all deceased to achieve eternal life. It becomes especially popular in Abydos and Upper Egypt. So more culture. Yuck. Expedition off track. Okay. We'll replace that. And another big ancestral duty hitting us. But we're still getting plus 50 per turn. So it's not like we have nothing. Really glad to have these temples, obviously, as they may well save us from further unpleasantness. And it's time for our final bit to finish up Unas and wrap up the Fifth Dynasty in style. Okay, we get plus 90 favor. We will take every bit of that and be thankful for it, along with another tomb. And here we can see very reminiscent, and in fact, obviously based on the pictures that we have seen of the tomb of Unas, with all the various writing and the pyramid text on the walls. I think this in particular, this illustration is really well done. The Sixth Dynasty comes to power. Known for the decline of royal authority, increase in authority of nomarchs, a harsh ordeal awaits this dynasty, undermining the power of its kings. Indeed. So, we only have 4 construction projects to conclude in 21 turns. Well, they want us to do 9 in, 19 turns? In the Fifth Dynasty. So they're definitely reducing the requirements on us. And we will return to all of this when we come back next time. But let's take a look at the Tomb of Unas here and see what they have to say about that. Royal cults were initially supposed to be sustained eternally through sacrifices, but time showed that worship of royal spirits can cease, ending their eternal life. King Unas decided to commit the sacrificial ritual to the walls of his pyramid, aka the pyramid texts. Now the deceased could read it himself and be independent of the sacrifices of his descendants. So, when we come back, we're going to be going through the Sixth Dynasty and the run-up to the First Intermediate Period, and then that final travesty, tragedy, whatever you may call it, and some post-game frivolities will be happening in the episode after that, which will wrap up the series. Thanks everybody for watching with Egypt Old Kingdom, and we will return.